Hello, everyone, and welcome. We'll get started in just a minute here. I don't see our guest speaker on yet. I'm just going to give it a couple minutes. Just send Eric a quick note. I hope he's not having any trouble joining us. I'll be right back. Oh, hi, John. I see you're with us. That's great. All right. Well, I don't want to hold anybody up. We'll go ahead and get started. We'll get through the announcements. Hopefully, Eric will be able to join us before we get to that part of our scheduled event here tonight. For now, I just want to welcome everybody and to the Inventors Association of Arizona and take you through a couple things in case it's your first time joining us. First of all, there we go. This is called Click Meeting, our platform, and the way that it works is on the right-hand side of your screen. You see there's the window display where I think you just see me right now. Below that, you'll see a list of our attendees, and below that, you'll see a chat. Inside the chat is where you can post all your questions, or if you have any comments or want to chat with anybody, you can certainly do that. There's two options, two tabs there under the chat. One is public and one is Q&A mode. If you could just click on the Q&A mode when you have a question, it helps me kind of separate comments and discussions from the questions. So when we get to that part of our evening, it's really easy for me to filter through those and help you get those questions answered. First of all, the Inventors Association of Arizona is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation formed to educate, support, and provide a centralized source of information for all inventors at all levels. We are comprised of both experienced and aspiring inventors. So you've got all kinds of experience, whether you're just getting started or maybe you've had an invention in the past but didn't really get that far down the path. Or who knows, maybe you've had something licensed like I have at this point. That's great. We're so glad to have all of you here this evening. We provide guidance and help to each other to help turn your ideas into reality. The synergy of knowledge and experience helps new inventors navigate the idea to market process, which can be a challenging process. We share resources, contacts, and provide support in a confidential forum. We have monthly meetings twice a month. The public meeting, which is the one you're attending this evening, is an open door forum. This is where anyone can attend. Normally, it's $20 to attend if you're not a member, or free for our members. Since COVID, we went online and we have not started charging for these meetings. So if you are a guest this evening, enjoy that little perk you're getting. We always have one keynote. Sometimes we'll have some extra guests like we do this evening. We have one keynote speaker that will educate you and inform you on various best practices related to inventing. It's a terrific source of networking also. So that's why I say if you want to chat with each other in the chat, you certainly can. When we meet in person, it'll be another opportunity to obviously network even more. Our closed door meeting is for members only. They're always held on the third Wednesday of the month versus like tonight, the first Wednesday of the month. And to become a member, you do have to have one of our non-disclosure agreements signed and on file. And we even take a photocopy of your driver's license, because the confidentiality and keeping and creating a safe space for us to all be able to talk about what we're working on is critical, and we take that very seriously. They're structured more like a think tank than an educational format like tonight, where we have the opportunity to sit in the spotlight or come up here on stage and share what we're working on, get feedback from one another or direction, ask our questions of one another. So say, for example, I have a new product and I'm thinking about maybe taking action on it, but I want to get some feedback on materials or colors or sizes or price points, or even just asking everyone what they think, if they think it's a good idea or not. So it's a great way to get kind of a focus group for all of your ideas. We share our ideas and suggestions, our resources, and of course, this is where you get the real customized help, because it is a safe place to be able to talk about your invention. The membership dues for an individual is $200. If you have more than one person, it's $200 for the first and $150 for each additional member. So that might be a spouse, or we've had people join with their children, or it could be a business partner, someone that you're working with on the invention, a co-inventor. Seniors are always $150, and the same for active military, and the renewals you get at a discount. If you maintain your membership, you get that $50 discount then each following year. To sign up, and I'll pop up let's see if I can do that right. I think I can, yep, I think I can do it right now. Just gonna add it. There we go. At the top of your screen now, you see there's a little red button. It says IAA membership. That's a quick access link, or you can just note azinventors.org and join at your convenience. So we hope that tonight is a good example for you to see what you get when you join the Inventors Association of Arizona. So with that said, John, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to make you a presenter with me here, and you can go ahead and hit the camera below the video and the microphone, and you can join me here and share with us your updates from the USPTO. Oh, here you are. John, if you're having trouble with the tech, you could drop a note in the chat, or you can text me at my phone number. We are having some issues tonight. Why am I shaking? I'm like nervous. I feel on the spot. There you are. Yay, just hit the microphone.
Found the buttons.
You're good to go. All right.
It's a different platform than I'm used to. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. You know what I'm even going to do? I am going to change us to a where is it? Oh, here it is. I'm just going to change us to a meeting mode. Oh, no, I better leave it as it is. Never mind. Floor is yours. Please tell us about what's going on with the USPTO.
Thank you, Lisa. My name is John Schneider. I'm an administrative patent judge with the Patent Trial and Appeal Board at the PTO. And I'm calling to let you know that the PTO is coming to Phoenix in February. February 23rd and 24th, we're going to be having a series of programs. The first day on the 23rd will be over at the Sandra Day O'Connor School of Law at ASU, where we will actually have live hearings by both the Patent and the Trademark Appeal Boards for people to attend and see how we operate. But on the 24th, we're starting to organize and hope to invite you to a series of meetings that we're going to have talking about resources we have in the Patent Office to help independent inventors. It's going to be, we have a presentation on the patent side about the different resources that are available to you to help you obtain a patent, work your way through the patenting process. There'll be discussions from various resources we have for entrepreneurs and help you develop your business plans and receive your inventions. We're still in the forming stages of this, but we will be there on the 24th, and we're going to be working with Lisa to get the information out to you about where we will be and what time it'll have on. We just wanted to give you a heads up and hold a date so you can join us hopefully on the 24th, and you're also welcome on the 23rd, but the 24th will be the day we'll have the programs for you, the independent inventors and your small businesses, to tell you about the resources we have. It'll also be a listening session with the director. Will also possibly be there to find out what more we can do to help you protect your inventions and go forward with your business. So that's all I have for you today, but
Thank
look
you.
for the space. There'll be more coming along. But as I say, we'll let Lisa know and we'll work with her to be sure you're all invited to the programs and events when we come to Phoenix.
Thanks, John. Can you tell us just give us like an example of what we will get, what we can hope to learn or get out of it, other than just resources?
Sure.
For those who might not be familiar with
What we have is a presentation we've given to a number of inventor groups where we sort of walk through the inventing process, because a lot of people don't fully understand what all happens once you file your application in the patent office. And we'll give you some insight as to some of the resources you can use. Like one of the things you're going to hopefully hear about today is from the Patent and Trademark Resource Center about how to be able to search the different databases to make sure your invention is something that can be patented, and also get some more information from them. There are also resources to help you if you don't have or can't afford a lawyer. There are various programs that are available. We'll talk about some of those. We will talk about some of the resources we have just to help you educate yourself about the patenting process. For example, we at the board sponsor a monthly webinar called Inventor Hour, where we'll talk about different aspects of what we do at the board and also about the patent process in general. And those are free webinars that we have available to people. So we'll talk about all those different resources you have for you in the patent office. There'll be people from some of the other organizations in the office to tell you about what they do to help independent inventors. So it'll be a full program of activities and things we've got to help the underrepresented communities, particularly the solo inventors and those from disadvantaged groups and what have you. We're trying to get more representation and be sure that everyone gets an adequate opportunity to seek patent protection for their inventions.
That sounds incredible. I think even though I've been doing this for 30 years, it's amazing lately, especially it seems like the USPTO has been doing so much to update the website and make it easier to do searches, which I'm still overwhelmed with. I'll be the first to admit. But all of the free resources and the links and the way you've organized it online, it's the best it's ever been. So I'm looking forward to getting a fresh perspective and understanding how to use all of that. I will definitely be there. And I will announce that when you send me the information. I'll send it out even to our entire broadcast list, not just our members, so that anybody that can benefit from that will know that it is going on.
We appreciate that. And please come with your questions, because that helps us focus what we're presenting and also gives us guidance as we improve the program as we're going on based upon the feedback we get from folks. So everybody is welcome to come. We'll be sure we get the data out to everyone. And it'll be on the 24th will be the day we'll actually putting this program on. So, and if you've got any questions about this, you can reach me through Lisa and we'll try to help you answer them as we go forward in putting together the programs or things you'd like to hear from us as we put this program together.
That sounds terrific. Well, John, thank you very much for jumping on so quickly with us tonight. I appreciate you coming in to explain it. It's much better coming from you than it would have been from me. So
no, I appreciate that. I'm very happy to do this.
Awesome. All right. Well, you have a wonderful rest of your evening. And we will be in touch.
Very good. Thank you.
All right. So I'm still waiting for Eric to come in. Peter, if he was your connection, I sent him an email. If he was wondering if he called him, that would be awesome. But for now, I do have another guest actually who's joined us this evening. And we'll go ahead and jump to let's see here, Amber, where'd you go? There you are. All right, I'm going to make you a presenter also. You can undo your camera, which is right below your video, my video here, or actually just put your name, next to your name, it should say, which you should be at the top of the list. You'll see the camera and the microphone right next to your name on the attendee list. You should be able to click on the camera there. Yeah, the reason you're only seeing the two of us is because we're in meeting mode, or we're in webinar mode, not in meeting mode, and so the reason being that when we have our guest speaker, he can show his presentation on the big screen and just the person in a small box. But I'll open it up and switch to meeting mode in just a moment if Eric isn't here. In the meantime, Amber, if we could just get started with your announcement, that would be great. Might be looking forward to. Again, your name is under the attendees. Just find your name and then unclick the camera and the microphone to join me on the platform, to join me on that stage. That's so words. My audio is not that good. Someone just said. Anybody else having trouble hearing my audio?
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can. Hi, Amber.
Okay, good. Hi.
Did you notice if my audio was wobbly or anything like that?
It was a little staticky, and then now it's good. So it went
out.
now.
I don't know what was okay. I might have just had a bad connection or something. I'm hardwired in, so I can't do any better than that. I'm so glad you made it. So for those of you who maybe came in a minute later, whatever, I have a couple little extra guests for us tonight before we get started with our presentation, but Eric hasn't joined us yet either. So Amber is a teacher. Where are you at?
I'm in Gilbert, Arizona, so I work for Gilbert School District.
Okay, and you reached out about having some inventors come in and talk to your class. What were you looking for?
Yes, so this past year, Gilbert has adopted a new reading curriculum and language curriculum that had a series of stories that we allowed the kids to pick. And one of them, the first one they wanted to do was this one with involved inventions. So all semester long, they've been working on either the writing portion or the reading portion of it, and we're wrapping it up before break on the 21st. So about the time I emailed you, I thought, I wonder if we have any inventors in Arizona. And then that's when I Googled and reached out to you. So thank you so much. But what I'm looking for is just if anybody has any time to come visit us and let us, just really listen to how your invention process goes through, your successes, your failures. The main thing about the curriculum this year was an essential question that talks about how is invention, is it more perspiration or perspiration or
perspiration or preparation?
Right. Yeah. So I'm tongue-tied. And so that was one of them, and they have to write about it. So right now, they are having to write an argumentative essay on the dream of flight, and if it's a fantasy or a dream. And most of them have chosen a dream. And then they have to cite some text evidence of these two stories that they've read. So I was just wondering if anybody was available to just come and speak to us for a few hours and multiple classes, but I want to make it as flexible and maybe make it a recurring thing if this works out.
Yeah, I used to do those with the kids all the time. I live in Tucson now, so I can't make it. So if any of you are interested, Amber, I'm going to ask you to just drop your email address in the chat for everyone. And please reach out directly to her so you can coordinate, obviously, your schedule with hers and do us proud. Go teach those young minds.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. It'll be 8th graders. So hopefully their brains are still working.
So my experience has been just to go in and talk about what my story is, what I did, what I invented, lots of samples and examples to demonstrate, maybe some of the working prototypes and then what it looked like on the shelf, all of that stuff. And the kids are always fascinated by it. So I think you'll have a terrific turnout. And we have some wonderful people that have had some great success in our group. So hopefully that will, let's see here. Yep, I'm seeing it.
Okay, good. All right.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lisa. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much,
You're welcome.
Amber.
Okay. Talk to you later.
All righty.
Right.
All right. I'm still seeing a couple things in the chat. I'm going to switch us over to meeting mode anyway, because since our guest speaker isn't here anyway, maybe we'll do a format. Oh, goodness. It's always the bottom one, and I don't know why I skip it every time. Okay. So meeting. Here we go. We're all going to come on stage together.
Okay. Do I get off now?
You can stay there. It should switch right over. It's not doing it. Let's see here. What am I doing wrong? Oh, wrong one. There we go. Oh, I don't know why it's putting everybody up there instead. Okay, so
Well, mine came up, I had to turn on my camera and my
yeah, you do, but I don't know why everyone's not showing up in the regular meeting window as opposed to up in that corner. Muted and manually unmuted, 25 attendees.
Here, we're coming. We're coming on.
Yeah. So on the right side, folks, and I apologize, I'm not sure if it's because I've done this before, so I don't know why it's not working now. But on the right side where that column is, there's little arrows that you can grab. You can actually stretch that and move it to the left. This is a crappy experience, but you can adjust all of those, right? So that you can move the windows up and down, and you can move the windows side to side. So you can set that to whatever you're comfortable with. And that way it'll be easier too, if Eric does join us, for you to just slide it back over when he runs his presentation. This whole presentation was all about patent searching and the resources that are available to us at the library. I hope, Peter, did you happen to get a hold of him? You're muted.
I have not been able to get a hold of him. I even reached out to somebody else to try and get additional contact information for him. So,
okay, because
I hope everything's okay with him.
So even last week we were going back and forth. So I'm not really sure, but I hope he's okay. Hey, Laura. I hope you're feeling better.
Yeah, I'm hanging in there.
I'm so sorry. All right. So as the former executive director for what, 12 years?
I don't know.
What do you do when a guest speaker couldn't make it? Because I've got lots of ideas, but I don't know what people are used to.
Well, we haven't had that happen in well, it's happened before, but it's been so many years, and I've gotten so old I've forgotten what
Good, and I don't feel so.
Yeah, that keeps you happy when you're old and you forget all the bad stuff. We could talk about some of the issues that are going on with anybody at all. Anyone having any stumbling blocks, or we can't really reveal too much because it's public, but
right.
Just kind of in general.
What we could do is, if you all hear from me, I hope you all can hear me okay now. I can see quite a few people saying that they couldn't hear me, and I don't know how long ago that was, but I'm happy. I may even already have a presentation built for a question or a subject matter that you'd like me to dig into more. And we can certainly open it up because we have enough experts here on the call to help answer those questions too. So why don't we just treat it more like a fireside chat, and everybody can come on who wants to unmute. If you unmute, we won't see you, but we will hear you. And it'll bring you up on stage with, as you can see with Patrick, it's just a logo there instead. Or if you'd like to turn on your video, of course you can do that. So is there any burning questions tonight? Something that someone has struggled with, wrestled, and wants to know more about? You guys got it all figured out.
Did John say Just a quick one. Did John say that the USPTO is going to be in the month of, was it February 24th? Okay. I didn't catch what month that was. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I should have asked him to put those dates in there, but he's going to send me the information, so I'll get that out to everyone. And it's far enough away that we should be just fine.
That also might be interesting for Amber's class for the 8th graders to tune in on that.
That's true.
Yeah.
I
So,
think I
Amber,
think
what
that
you
would-
may want
That
to do
might
is
be
get
overkill.
our distribution list. So-
Okay.
So that when we have meetings, I mean, you'll get an email once a month as to who the keynote speaker is that month.
Okay.
But Lisa will also send out the thing about the USPTO in February. So that way, when somebody wants to tune in, whatever month it might be a topic of interest for your class too.
Oh, that would be nice because we just finished up. It was, now I remember, inspiration versus perspiration. So they've done so much work on it. So then I just wanted to put it out there before the holidays. But if I did get someone and they needed to come after the holidays, that would be fine for me too. But I think it's important for the students to know that we have inventors associations, and all I had to do was Google it and find you guys. So thank you so much.
Sure.
Is there
Amber,
any,
would you be interested in having a group of 2 speakers at the same time as opposed to just isolated
Yeah.
speakers?
I'm up for anything. This is my first time teaching 8th grade. I've taught 6th grade for many years, and so this is my first year at an 8th grade level. So I'm up for 2 people. We can do it in the morning, and it can be as long as you guys want or as short as you want.
I think it'd be more fun if you had a couple of people, that way they could kind of spread their knowledge, and also it's kind of fun doing it something like that and as a team rather than just as a person.
I agree. I think it's less stressful. It's more fun when you have those multiple ideas in the room.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I agree.
Before, Amber, it's been quite a few years ago, but we went out to the schools and we did, I had a panel of inventors. We had like 4 inventors, and then the kids would bring their ideas up to the table too, and we would take a look at them and ask them questions, and they would kind of try to present their idea to us too. It was really a lot of fun.
Because I'm the English teacher, so I thought about also where you just said that was like, I probably should reach out to the science teacher, and we have a STEM class.
Right.
And so I wonder if, like, moving forward, we could use your association or ask, for you to come and visit us. It just so happened that the kids wanted to pick the one that was about invention. And so we've been working on that. And it's been interesting to hear the discussions on it. So yeah, I agree. I think we can move forward from this, whatever we get. So it was worth a shot.
are you volunteering, Keith?
I'm going to think about it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So it's about 50 minutes, a class period. And what I was thinking about doing was, maybe doing period 1 and period 2 in the library. So for about, 2 hours, just speaking 2 hours. And then you'd have a group of about 3 or 4 classes in a library room, depending upon if the teacher wanted to join or not. And then you would be done by lunchtime. So it'd be whatever date.
So it's the same. It's kind of the same presentation over 3 or 4 times, not.
Yeah.
not
No, just
one
it would be over same presentation over 2 times.
2 times.
Okay, so I figured out what the problem is. In my emails I said 6 o'clock, but on the calendar invite I still have the old time, 7 o'clock. So my guess is he's not going to be here until 7.
Okay.
My bust. So sorry, folks, but that's okay. We'll just do the first half and the second half first.
Okay, you got it.
Yeah, that'll work.
I do have an announcement also. Y'all remember me sharing with you this patent pending barrette. I mean, this is just obviously my working model, but for those of you who've been following me on this, I licensed it last week to Scunsy.
Yay.
Wow.
All right. Yay. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So We negotiate all the terms. The only thing they're waiting on is getting the cost of goods back from China, which I'm not worried about. I know that it's negligible, so it's not going to be an issue. And then they'll send me the contract. So that's where we're at. I mean, I think it's gone sideways before. It could still go sideways, but they really wanted it. I had the president of the division on the call with me, or the head of that division anyway. And she was telling the other two on the call, because she was leaving town the next day, I want you to do this and get the contract. And she talked through the terms. And then she said, and telling them, I want you to send it off. And I want this done before I get back. So we'll see. That's where it's at. Thank you. My first one in a very, very long time. So I'm excited about it. It's going to be under the Scunsy brand. Yay.
That's huge. I mean, that's great, Lisa. Congratulations.
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate it. I woke up that morning before the call knowing that it was coming up, and I wasn't nervous. And I remember thinking, what's wrong with me? I'm supposed to be nervous. I felt very melancholy about it. So then I thought, well, I guess I'll just lean into that instead of being all anxious, be mellow or whatever. And same thing, when we got off the call, it was a done deal. And my first thought wasn't to call a family member and celebrate or go post it on social media. I just was like, okay, back to work. Just
oh my goodness.
Isn't that weird? I really think something's, I literally that night I was meditating. I was like, I need to check myself. Am I depressed? Because that was more the emotion of someone who's like depressed.
Oh, that's funny.
Weird, right? I don't know. So
well, you've licensed a lot of things before, so it's kind of
yeah,
understandable that you kind of knew, but
yeah.
At the same time, it's been a while, and it's a huge
I know.
accomplishment.
Yeah, and it's been a very long time since I did it, so that's why I expected to be a lot more nervous, but I don't know, it just worked. I think I was more concerned, I guess would be the right word, because Mary, well, she goes by Marguerite now, or MG, but Mary LaFauci, who's the head of marketing, was going to be on the call, and she and I worked together at Scunsy before they sold it to Conair, and we didn't get along very well. It wasn't that we fought or anything like that. It just turned out that there was stuff going on behind my back. And at the end of the day, there was an issue with one of the inventors that I had brought in a product for, all of a sudden being patented by her. And so we've just never had a good vibe ever since then. And she was great on the call. I started off by saying, it's really nice to see you again. I know it's been a long time. And it worked out fine. So I don't know. She sabotaged a lot of the things I did in the past. Yeah, Drew.
Yeah. Does Amber know what that means to be licensed?
Oh, I don't know. Amber, do you? Well, you're about to probably hear about it when they come to your class. Licensing is when you invent something and usually get a patent or a patent pending on it, and then like leasing it or renting it, a lot of people will say, but licensing it to the company gives them the right to make it and sell it with their brand. And they pay us just a royalty on all of those sales. So it's passive income because they have to do all of the work. But you're also giving up, all of the power and control of what it would be like if you were to venture. I prefer to license. I've tried venturing unsuccessfully and it nearly bankrupted me. And so I would never personally do it unless it's a boutique lifestyle business. Like I have these temporary tattoos that I just sold a ton of these obviously over Halloween, and Mardi Gras is coming up. But these, Etsy, that's fine. It's a little easy lifestyle business. You make 20 grand on it, 25, whatever a year. It's not like anything. But, although compared to teacher salary, because my daughter's a teacher, I do know that that's actually quite a bit of money. That's why you're going, I don't know.
I was like, wait, I might make some side money. Well, a parent,
this is a great way because
yeah,
when I was inventing this, because I had done it before, I was at the time of creating the design, I was also thinking about how to lay it out for purposes of packaging and mailing it in only paying first class mail as opposed to thick or bulk packaging, because then pricing obviously goes up and you have to think about that cost being added to it. Everything about this is just the perfect business. And if you can make something and sell it on Etsy, it's a great little lifestyle business if you're ever thinking about it. Yeah, Drew.
Yeah, I thought for Amber as a teacher, having youth inventing, this is a great direction that they could go, because they don't have to become the company that produces that or distributes that new invention. If they license it, then the company basically offers them a passive income for them to produce that and even put their name on it. If, it's the inventor's decision is that that's the direction they want to go. So they could still go to school while this company's making them money with their new idea.
Exactly. Totally passive. Yeah, Keith, hang on one second. Eric, I owe you the biggest apology. I realize why.
Why is that? Because I was about to apologize, because you did actually tell me it had moved up from 7 to 6.
But the calendar I sent you that you accepted said 7. So between the two, it's on me. I will own it. I screwed up. I'm really sorry. But thank you so much.
I was here at 6:30. The way I see it, that's 50-50.
Oh, you're a master negotiator. I can see that. Awesome. All right. Well, we'll get started with your presentation then too in just a minute, but we'll wrap up this conversation. Keith, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to suggest that for Amber's sake and so forth, she's wondering about inspiration, perspiration. You had a little item that you made and you licensed, and it's for your hair. Why don't you tell Amber about how long you've been working on that specific item? How long ago you came up with the idea and to the point where you licensed it? How much time?
I would say it probably came to my mind in August. Oh, it did. It was the beginning of August, because when I think about when I moved. So I messed around with different model making versions of it for about a month and a half or so. And that doesn't mean constantly, like every day. It's as I was inspired, as I was moved, or as I had a little extra time to putz around with it or whatever. And then I didn't do anything with it for almost 3 months because I was moving and just going through chaos and all my stuff was out of order. And I had already booked the call with him and I had to keep rescheduling it because I wasn't ready to pitch. So I whittled away until I made something out of the silicone rubber and with some parts. It didn't look like this. I actually made a really beautiful black one. And then I went to Ulta and they had, combs for your hair that were silver and had beautiful jewel embellishments on them that were on a wire that you could bend. So I used those combs and then had the wire. This was black and had the beautiful embellishments all around it. And that's the one I actually demonstrated. They asked me to mail them everything. This is the only one I didn't ship. So I did a little presentation sheet and talked them through it and showed them the other one instead. And that was it. So honestly, in total time in is maybe 10 hours, 15 hours total. And
you know what Amber would need to know though is, Amber, Lisa is an expert inventor and she knows exactly what she's
that's
doing.
fair. Yeah, you really can't count
she has it all lined up and she has her resources and contacts.
I already know the people. I already had relationships with them. So
Right. So
it's a big deal.
We follow her, it's like everybody wants to be Lisa. But
oh God, no, do not want that.
For people that, really have never done it before, it can be a year, it can be 3 years.
My first one was 13 months.
Yeah.
My shortest one was probably like this one by itself. I have another time that I licensed 3 in one meeting and I invented all 3 of them in about 6 weeks of time. But again, I already had the relationships, I already knew the business, the hair accessories, so I knew the space, I knew what they were looking for. I had all of those variables locked down already. And it was just a matter of reading the market well enough to know what the next trend might be. Yeah, Drew.
So a lot of times when you do have an idea, it does help to have a mentor that can help guide you through. And that's what this group is all
This
about.
group is? Okay. All right.
Exactly. Yeah.
That was my question. I wanted to know, because you guys did say that it was a closed meeting at some times and it's confidential. And I'm like, oh, because you guys discuss each other's ideas and you have to keep it confidential with the paperwork. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's exactly why. Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. And there's rules with the patent office. If you publicly disclose your idea, you start a
Mhm.
clock, and you only have 12 months to file a patent application on that from the day it's publicly disclosed, or not only can you not get a patent, but no one can ever get a patent on it, technically.
Oh, okay.
So the confidentiality is important for that reason. It's not so much that I've never had anybody come in here, and even in the 30 years that I have been in and out of this club, and then Laura, and I'm sure in the 12 years you were doing it too, ever had someone even come close to a fight with someone else who said they stole their
Mhm.
idea.
Yeah.
There
No,
are a
it's
lot
more
of
of just brainstorming.
We
yeah,
do that.
there are a lot of well-meaning websites and groups, and some not so well-meaning.
Okay.
And a lot of times those things become public domain, and then they can't be
Used. Oh,
Protected
used.
or licensed. Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody. Lisa, do you mind if I step off? I've been traveling all day
yeah.
from California.
No, that's great. If everybody's
All
got
right.
their questions answered, it was so
I'm
nice to
good.
meet
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for joining
Oh,
us
it's nice
tonight.
meeting you guys. I'll pop in. I'll keep in touch no matter what.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
You're welcome.
All right. Eric, on the bottom of this black screen here, there's a red button with the two computers with a line through it.
Yeah.
That is what you can click on if you want to share your screen. Is
Excellent.
that something? Do you want to do that tonight?
Yeah, I was just going to kind of show, I don't have any slides or anything prepared.
Oh,
I was
okay.
just going to talk about some of the things that we have available.
Okay.
And then just kind of show you a couple of websites that I think will be helpful.
Wonderful. All right. In that case, I'm going to leave us in meeting mode in case anyone has any questions. You can still jot them down, and I'll take a look at those in a moment. I'm just going to ask everyone to mute your microphone while Eric is sharing. Eric, I'm going to introduce you because I did take the time to put it all on paper here. So,
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. I'm going to feel all fancy. Eric, I'm ridiculous today. Eric Prosser is the interim head of STEM. Geez, I have the wrong glass. Of the STEM division and the engineering and entrepreneurship librarian with the ASU library. He is a liaison to the Fulton School of Engineering and provides research services for faculty, graduate students, and undergraduate students, along with instruction in critical analysis and information literacy. Blah, it's a lot of words, including the legal and ethical use of information, which is fascinating to me. Prior to finding his home in academic librarianship, he worked as a reliability engineer in the nuclear power. I practiced this and I'm still not getting it right. The nuclear power industry, and later as an attorney. Eric has a BS in physics from Harvey Mudd College and the University of, an MA in Information Resources and Library Science from the University of Arizona, a JD from the University of San Diego, and he is currently enrolled in ASU's PhD program for Engineering, Education, and Systems Design outside of the library. He enjoys travel, skiing, and trivia contests. Without further ado, welcome, Eric.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so as you can probably tell from my background, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. So I'm not inventing things. I just keep reinventing myself. I think that's what's going on. So yeah, Lisa, thank you for that lovely introduction and for inviting me here tonight. But yeah, as I said, as she mentioned, I am currently the head of the STEM division at ASU Library. And essentially what that entails is I supervise a team of librarians, library staff, and student workers at two of our libraries. the Noble Science and Engineering Library at the Tempe campus, and the Polytechnic Library at our Polytechnic campus out in Mesa over by the airport there. In addition to that, as the engineering and entrepreneurship librarian, one of the things that I do is I often talk to classes, individual students, both undergraduate and graduate, about finding resources in engineering, finding resources for entrepreneurship, using both the subscription databases that we have at ASU Library and information that's kind of out there on the open web. And so what I wanted to talk to you today briefly about is some of the ways that you can use libraries to help you do some research and find out what's out there. One thing I do want to kind of underscore here is some of the databases that I'm going to be talking about are subscription databases to ASU, which means if you are not an ASU student or ASU staff member or somehow affiliated with the university, you cannot access them remotely. However, anybody can access them if you are physically present on one of our campuses. So literally all that means is that you have to just come to one of the 4 campuses that we have in the Phoenix metro area. Sit down. Usually in the library is the best place to go, but you can sit anywhere as long as you're hooked up to ASU Wi-Fi. And if you're physically there and hooked up to ASU Wi-Fi, you can access all the resources I'm going to talk about today. I would say the best campuses to use are actually the Polytechnic campus, which is out in Mesa, or our West campus, which is off of Thunderbird. The reason why is after 4 p.m. and on weekends, parking is free at those campuses. If you use our downtown campus, you're going to be pretty much at the mercy of whatever parking is available downtown. And if you try to go to Tempe, you'll need to probably park in one of our lots. That's not to say that those aren't good places to go. I'm just saying if you want to save a few bucks an hour, using one of the other 2 libraries is probably the best place to go. So also, if at any time you have any questions, feel free just to pop right in. Don't wait till the end, because usually when you're thinking of a question and I'm talking about something, that is literally the best time to ask it. So feel free just to throw it in the chat, or just go ahead and unmute too. I don't think we have a large ornery number of people here, so that should work just fine. So let's talk about the sort of things that you might need to research, right? One of the
Before you move on to research, are there any other locations for Prescott?
Oh, no. Yeah, we don't have any satellite campuses in Prescott. You would either have to come down to one of you'd either have to come down into Phoenix to one of our campuses. NAU is also an option. NAU has a number of the same databases that ASU does. And it's the same rules up there. If you're physically on their campus, you can access all these databases. Another option to use is that many public libraries have some of the databases that I will be talking about. You would just need to check with your local library and see which ones they have available. So those are always options there as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. It's one of the frustrating things we have as librarians, because for us, we want, information to be kind of out there, open and accessible, except the vendors that we deal with want that information to be behind paywalls and based upon, the number of enrolled students we have. So essentially the trade-off from an IT perspective is, instead of giving every student an individual login, we either have them log in remotely using an ASU ID, or, they just IP authenticate based on location, which is why if you're on one of our campuses, it's always going to work. So let's talk about some of the things that you may need to research, right? And some of the obvious things that, you've probably been talking about already is, finding patents. If you're interested in trademark and, branding, looking at trademarks. Those are things that, can often be researched on the open web. But there are other things too that you might want to take into account. Sometimes when you're looking at patents, the prior art will reference certain academic articles that have been published. The prior art may reference technical reports or other things that are potentially behind paywalls. Other things that you may be interested in is, when you're, getting ready to seek funding, you're going to want to talk about your potential market. So you might need to do a little bit of market research and take a look at, what things are like in the industry you're trying to break into. And there's certainly information out there on the open web that can help you. But there's also some information that we have in some of our databases that are actually very useful for that. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to do a little plug for the state library. And let's see. Make sure I choose the right window here. Otherwise, you'll just see my calendar. There we go. You should be seeing a screen right now that basically talks about the patent and trademark resource centers. And now that I'm on the screen, I can't see you, so I might need a verbal or an oral confirmation here. But are you familiar with the patent and trademark resource centers that are available through the state library?
I am aware of them. I'm not sure who else is, but if you do look in the black box, you can see me. You do see? Oh, or are you looking at your screen instead?
I'm looking at my screen, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. So no, this is worth going through for us, please.
Excellent. Yeah. So what the patent and trademark resource centers are these are essentially kind of mini offshoots of the patent and trademark office. The patent and trademark office partners with libraries, and they can either be academic libraries, they can be public libraries. In this case, it's a state library. And essentially in exchange for, that library agreeing to basically dedicate some personnel and some personnel time to helping people with patent and trademark searches, they basically provide full access to those libraries for access to what used to be Pub West and Pub East. They've now moved to a new program. But essentially, you're getting librarians in these locations who have been trained by the Patent and Trademark Office in patent and trademark searching. So the librarians who are involved, typically, one of the requirements that they have to do is they have to go back to Washington, D.C. Every year for 1 week of follow-up training at the Patent and Trademark Office just outside of Washington, D.C. They also stay involved by doing webinars and presentations throughout the year. Just recently, ASU, along with the state library, we were the guinea pig for the first virtual webinar that the Patent and Trademark Office did with regards to instruction that they do for the public and instruction that they do for librarians outside of the system on how to do patent and trademark searching. Prior to COVID, they would be doing these in person. They would usually travel around and hit about 1/4 to 1/3 of all the patent and trademark resource centers in the nation every year. And so with COVID, that obviously the travel was restricted. And just this year, we piloted one of the first ones, and we thought it was actually a pretty good success for being the first time doing it in that venue. So we were excited by that. Anyway, the state library has just kind of opened back up after COVID for personal visits. And so this website here, and when I get back off of share, I'll make sure to drop that link in the chat so you can grab it. Anyway, this is their website that talks about the Patent and Trademark Resource Center here in Phoenix. It is located at the state library downtown. And what you can do is you can make an appointment with them and basically come in and have a confidential discussion with the librarian about the sorts of things that you're looking for. So if you are interested and want to discuss your invention at that time, that is considered a confidential communication. It doesn't start that 1 year public disclosure clock that Lisa talked about earlier. And they can help guide you into the right areas in basically the patent system to see if there are similar inventions out there or patents that may, touch on what you're doing. Or you may find that there really isn't that much exactly like what you're doing, which might be nice for perhaps getting your own patent. And so this is just a lovely service that they offer. It is the great thing is it's free. You don't have to pay anything for it. You just have to make sure that you have the time and can make the time with the state librarians there to talk about it. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that service.
Beef, that website that you had up was the Secretary of State. I assume the search though is done on the USPTO site. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's just the site that they use in order to, give you information about what they have and how to do that.
What resources are available, in other words?
Exactly. And
So
pasting that link into our chat.
yeah, I'm trying to figure out where chat is here on this.
On the right-hand side below the list of attendees at the bottom.
Oh, there we go.
So,
I had to
yeah.
uncollapse my screen. Excellent.
There you go. All
There
right.
we go. There's the link in the chat.
Thank you for
yeah,
doing
the web domain is actually azlibrary.gov. The state library is a division of the Secretary of State's office, which is a common bureaucratic place for state libraries in other states.
So the benefit of going to the librarian is if you're not really sure what keywords to use, or if you're looking at a patent and you're overwhelmed by it, or you're not really sure how to read it to see if it's reading on your idea. I'm sure there's shortcuts to finding more faster in working.
Yeah, there are. And, I don't know if you're familiar with Google Patents, but Google, if it's at patents.google.com, Google has their own search engine for looking at not only US patents, but worldwide patents that uses kind of Google's algorithm to, look for things. But one of the dangers in doing patent search, I don't know if dangers, that might be too strong of a word. But one of the issues if you use kind of natural language searches with patent searches is there's the potential to miss things. Because the Patent and Trademark Office, not just in the US, but worldwide, they use various specific classifications for types of inventions. And once you kind of establish what type of invention you have, and it may go into more than one class depending upon the function or the intent of what you're doing. But if you search using those specific patent classifications, you actually really get a much more relevant and kind of a more robust search than you do using natural language processing. That's not to say don't use Google Patents or natural language searches, because they're an excellent kind of introduction to getting into patents and finding things that are out there. But once you find patents through a natural language search that might be close to what you're looking at, that's when you kind of want to note, okay, how is this classified? What's the patent classification on it? What's the subclassification? And then do searches on that. And these librarians at the state library who've received this training from the Patent and Trademark Office are fantastic at identifying that and finding those codes and showing you how to use the Patent and Trademark Office's system to best search those codes the same way that a patent examiner would be searching if they were, looking at your application.
So Fred had asked, why is your information research better than Google? And I don't know if he was referring specifically to patent searches or the research in general. So Fred, just let us know if that answered your question. But kind of on the heels of what he was asking, one of the steps that we have to go through is not just validating, obviously, and getting a patent, but then finding the companies, finding the right people at companies, learning about the company, what their revenue is, for example, is an important question to know the answer to when you're pitching. Is that something that you all can help us with too? And if so, how?
Yes. And I'm going to get into that in just a minute, but I want to address that question from Fred, because I think it's a great question. And there's a quotation out there from Neil Gaiman, and I'm probably going to botch it since I'm not reading it straight off the screen or anything. But it essentially says Google can give you a million answers, but a librarian can give you the correct one. And so the expertise that librarians have is, and we especially see this in academia where professors are kind of subject matter experts. But what we are with librarians, as librarians, we are process experts. We are experts at searching, at finding things, at retrieving and assessing information. Google is an amazingly powerful tool. And if you ever hear a librarian saying don't use Google, I wouldn't listen to that librarian. But using Google is like having, and only using Google is like having a toolbox with only a hammer in it, right? And we all know the old saying, if the only thing you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Google's fantastic. But one of the things that librarians get a little frustrated with Google is that Google wants to be your friend. Okay. The reason Google is free is because you are essentially, you're not the customer, right? You're the commodity. And so when Google does a search, all of us on this call could pull up our Google right now and do the exact same search. And at some point, the results that we are given back are going to be different. And many times that difference is evident on the first page you get. And that's because when Google does a search, it's not just looking at, what you've typed in, but it also looks at your cache. It looks at your cookies. It looks at your search history. It looks at whatever kind of information it can grab that it knows about you based on basically your kind of digital signature. And then it tries to customize and style its results for what it thinks you want. The biggest gap I usually see is if I'm doing a Google search on a personal device versus a Google search on my work device, I get completely different information. I get completely different results because on my personal device, it starts giving me more things towards, leisure activities, or it starts giving me targeted ads for, hey, we noticed you are taking a vacation in a couple of days. Here's things you can do in Europe. Here's things, how to get to the airport. Whereas at work, I never get anything like that. There are also ways, that, Google will push certain sites to you, right? Sponsored sites, advertisements, things like that. When we do searches as librarians, especially in some of these databases I'm about to show you, if we all do the exact same search, we all get the same results. And for us as librarians, that's good, right? Because once we basically can, figure out what we're getting based on a certain search, then we can tweak that search if we need to in order to expand or contract our results to get the specific and particular information that we're looking for it. I also see Fred's there, saying, yeah, you won't have to pay somebody $300 an hour to do the research for you. It's a wonderful thing about librarians is we are free to you. And that's not just librarians at, academic institutions, that's public librarians as well. Pretty much any kind of librarian in a public facing role, we help you do this. We love doing it. And so the second part of that question I see, if there's nothing close to what you want to invent, can you go make your prototype and get somebody to apply for a patent for me? That's kind of a legal question, bordering a little bit on legal advice, which I cannot give and I will not give. But the thing is, if you're finding there's nothing close to what you want to invent out there, that's often a good time to either, you can go ahead and prototype it and, start to do the patent application. Or if you're going to be going through a patent attorney, they will inevitably insist on doing their own search. That's just the due diligence that a patent attorney is going to do. And you could show them the best patent search in the world and they'll nod at you and go, okay, I'm still going to do my patent search too to make sure it's fine. So yeah, the thing is though, if you are finding things out there, or even better, not finding things out there related to your invention, then yeah, it's stronger evidence that what you have is something that can be protected through a patent, I would say. Joe, I see your question there. Do I have a slide with the various locations that I mentioned so I can do a screen capture? I bet you I can find a page on ASU's website that has that, and I can throw that up there so you can do a screen capture. So if I don't do that, when I finish talking, remind me again so I don't forget. All right. Having said all that, got my little proselytizing there for librarians. Let's go back to Lisa's question about finding market information, things like that. So yeah, let's talk about that. I am going to, let's see, share my screen again here. And this time we are going to the library's homepage. And I am dropping that URL into the chat right now. I did that ahead of time. So yeah, our ASU Library's website is lib.asu.edu. Kind of easy to remember. And this is kind of the gateway to everything that we have in our library. The search that you see right now, there's kind of a main search bar right in the middle. This is what we call OneSearch. This is a search bar that you can use and not have to log in for. Okay. So this search is what I would say is most of the databases that we have. One of the drawbacks on using this broad search is that it tends to be a very shallow search in the sense that we have multiple databases that have multiple interfaces with other systems. And so this search cannot go very deep into the content. What it typically looks at when you're searching is it will look at the title of articles or the title of resources, the authors. It will look at basically what we call our subject terms or so the subject of what's going on. And in certain cases, if available, abstracts of articles, which are kind of one paragraph summaries of what full academic journal articles talk about. That's the sort of thing that you can do from your home, see what we have there, and get a general sense of, ooh, is there going to be more potentially there for me to take a look at? When you actually come to one of our libraries and use the databases on campus, that's when you want to kind of get deeper into things and go to what we call these subject specific databases. And to find those kind of hide, I'm not going to say hide, but they're basically down here under view research databases. We have a few under this drop down, which are some of the more popular ones that are out there. But really where I'm going to take you to is I'm going to take you kind of deeper than that, because some of the databases that you would want to use are actually going to be a little deeper in there. So I've taken us to our database list now. If you notice, we've got 713 databases. This number changes regularly as we add or get rid of some due to lack of use. We're always assessing our subscription databases. In general, it tends to trend up over time. But one of the nice things we do is kind of organize them by subject. So for us, we're going to go straight to the business and economic databases. This is where we're going to find a lot of the things that have the interesting things we're talking about. The top one here, which is called ABI Inform, this is where you would probably want to go if you're looking for a journal article, kind of an academic look at a business. It does, as you notice here, it does have some annual reports in there and industry reports. However, this is really not the primary database you're going to want to use for that. We're going to go a little deeper here. So let's look at a few. One of them here is called Mergent. This is a pretty powerful database in looking at information. See, I have to log in. I'm doing this from home. It's making me log in. If I were on campus, that page would not show up. It would go directly to the database. And so we're going to kind of get right in here. And so Mergent is an excellent database for looking at what I would say are specific businesses and individual firms or companies. You can look at industry kind of broad things through here, but there are a couple other products that we have through the library that I think are better used and better suited for, getting kind of a 30,000 foot view of an industry. And so if we wanted to say, take a look at a company, let's just look at Apple. And when we get in there, I just did a quick search on Apple. And immediately it's starting to give me some information, but, let's kind of ignore this right now, because even though this looks like a fun graph, essentially what it's telling me is, there's 38,000 companies out there that make less than $1 million that have Apple in their name. What we really want to do is come down here and, look for a specific company. In our case, when we say Apple, most of us probably think of, Apple up in Cupertino. A few of us may think still of Apple Records. I can't see if anybody's nodding to the Apple Records thing, but I made the Apple Records comment in a class about 6 weeks ago. And I think it was the first time where none of the students nor the professor knew who Apple Records were. And so that made me feel old. Anyway, so when we get in here and take a look at this, it gives us information about Apple. It gives us our company overview. You can see other things that are here. One of the interesting things too is it has links to SEC filings. You can often get a lot of information about what's going on in companies based on their SEC filings if they are publicly traded, because they basically have to disclose just about everything that's there. It's interesting too, because you can actually look at who some of their large competitors are. You can look at their annual reports. You can look at other companies that are around them. And then you can also get into financial details. And I think, Lisa, you were mentioning, how much is everybody making, things like that. So on a company basis, this is a great way to kind of look at the balance sheets, the cash flow, the historical information, the income statements, things like that. I did mention there are some industry details in this database. And so essentially what it does is when you get into here, one of the first things it's giving you are the NAICS codes. Essentially what these codes are these are codes that are established by the United States, by the government. And whenever you're looking at government records about industries, things like that, you can actually search by these codes in order to get certain sectors of industries or subsectors, things like that. And so essentially what this is showing us is where Apple is primarily classified. But as we know, Apple has their hands everywhere. And so they have a number of other industries that they are involved in. There's also a secondary. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought you were going to switch away, and before you go ahead and finish, but just don't leave this page yet.
No, go ahead. I was getting close. I was just going to say, you've also got another set of codes over here that are also used. And most places right now, any place you can search, usually you can either search under one set or the other, or both. But just be aware that depending on where you're looking, you may need to use the SIC codes, or you may need to use the NAICS codes.
Awesome. So back in the day, because I've been doing this 30 years, so it used to be that you would look up the SIC codes. But the problem is that often companies who are really just distributors, they outsource their manufacturing to China, for example, they will still list themselves as manufacturers, and it complicates things. So using these codes doesn't quite get us there. But what I really love about this showing the competition is that if you found one company that your product's probably a good fit for, and you know who they are, but you're having a hard time filling out your list of all the other companies that might be good, or maybe you have a really short list, then go to that company that you know of, that you know or believe your product would be a good fit for, like Apple in this case, and then look at the competitor list and see if any of them would also be potentially a good prospect for you as well. So I want to point that out. Will this also show us employees, or is that going to be a different database?
If it would be in here, I don't think this one's, you would have to probably dig down into some of the corporate documents to find it. As I recall, if I recall correctly, let me see here. That's just going to give you the description.
I don't think it's going to be here for what.
Yeah, I feel like it's not.
Not this one anyway. I'm sure there's a database in here somewhere that would have that, right?
Oh yeah. There are definitely others, and sometimes they do talk about number of employees in SEC filings, since that many times is obviously sometimes a major cost for a corporation, things like that. But yeah, I don't think there is a specific call out for number of employees here.
Okay. Keith?
Do you have databases that will give you contacts such as,
That's what I was just asking. Yeah,
yeah,
we're on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah, because sometimes they don't have those contacts on public facing open web pages. Yeah. I don't think we have a specific database that has that information, but that doesn't mean I don't know that feature is there. I'm always finding new things in these databases too when I get specific questions like, do they have contact information? Because many times the people I'm helping aren't actually looking for contact information, and so only when I do that. So let's keep our eyes out for that, because there's a couple others that may have that information.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So let's see what we can find. That's one of the things librarians love. It's like, ooh, I don't know. Let's find out. But anyway, that's Merchant. Obviously, you can get much more in. We could take an hour on every database that I'm going to show you today, but we're not going to do that. We don't have that kind of time.
Are those on Mergent, were they all only public companies?
No, not everything in Mergent is public companies. There are some private ones there, but then obviously things such as SEC filings, things like that are not going to be, present, because a private company doesn't have to have that. What I would say is privately held companies typically have less information available about them,
Right.
publicly.
That's why I was asking.
Yeah. So there is that information available, but it's not going to have the same depth of information that we have on publicly traded companies.
Great, thanks.
Another one I'd like to show, and this is now where we're starting to get some broader things, is called IBIS World, IBIS World. And so this is one that is looking more at that kind of 30,000 foot level, where we're taking a look at industries. And so if we wanted to take a look at, I don't know, let's just say streaming music. If I start, just doing a search to see what's out there regarding the streaming music industry, it thinks for a bit. And so where it's going for me, when we're looking at streaming music, it gives me options of, oh, you're talking about music. Do you want the music publishing? Do you want radio broadcasting? We actually have, streaming services in the UK, and then, music streaming services in the US. And so, I can click through on that. And now this database is really taking a look at things at the industry level. And so Where in Mergent, we had, all of our choices kind of at the top in tabs. Over here, most of our tabs are over on the left side and things that are going on. And so essentially it will talk about, what's going on in the industry. It talks about what the supply chain is. And so you can look at, if you're in this industry, hey, what's going on downstream? What's going on upstream? What are the type of environmental pressures that are out there on the industry? Where are things going? It gives you things internal to the database, so related industries, both domestic and international. It gives you, a snapshot of the major players, a summary of the industry, and obviously more information here. And then if we go over here, we can look at the industry itself, and it starts giving us some of, the key statistics of the industry. So, hey, what's going on in terms of aggregate revenue? What was historic growth? What is projected growth? We've got often they'll have a SWOT analysis for the industry. They'll talk about the industry structure and just other kind of information in there that you might be interested in as an entrepreneur, that your potential investors might be interested in as funding your venture. It talks about employment on an aggregate sense, not on a company sense. And again, we're getting a lot of information in here about the industry. And so again, as I mentioned, we can look at performance. We can look at, again, we're getting more information. The outlook, right? What's going to happen in the future? This is always a big thing for us.
I can see this being really helpful both in the early stages of your idea when you're validating the opportunity, but also assuming you had enough early stage and just decided to really unpack this part later when you're making a business case for licensing. If you can demonstrate somehow based on these learnings or insights what the wow is about your product using real world data, you've given them a reason to believe, right? And they should license at that point. So that's
exactly.
really helpful.
And other things we can do over here is, we've got these little drop downs. So if you want to see specifically what things are going to be talked about over here, it will give you an evaluation of, where the industry is at in its life cycle, things like that. Competitive landscape. Earlier, Lisa talked about finding, competitors. And so this kind of shows you who the major players are in the market, both kind of in the graphical way and, in a tabular way as well. We have the ability to kind of click through and look at the specific companies themselves. And there we go. There's our employee number right there for Apple.
Yeah.
And so, yes, to answer your question previously, we do have databases with employment information.
It's more about knowing the contacts, though, I think is what Keith was also asking. I think it was.
Yeah. So we got numbers, but now we want to know who to talk to. Okay. We'll keep looking for that. Well, let's look at companies.
There's two things that when I'm qualifying companies, I want a company that's, these are rough numbers, but generally around 100 million to 500 million. So I know they're not too big that I get lost, and they're not too small that I don't make any money by licensing to that. So knowing how much revenue and how many employees there are gives me an idea of that size and whether or not I want to do business. But then I have to still find the right person at that company to talk to and pitch, right?
Right, exactly. And I don't see obviously on the company overview where they would necessarily have that. So we still might not have contact information in the IBIS World database. But again, what you're probably starting to see is some of the information that we have in this database overlaps with information that we had in the first database we looked at, the mergent database. And this happens a lot, that, databases are kind of like an overlapping Venn diagram, but they all have these things out on the edge of the circles that kind of, set them apart from each other. But that's essentially IBIS World, the type of kind of deep dive that you can do and kind of some of the information out there. One of the things I like to use IBIS World for is basically kind of seeing that information, like a SWOT analysis for the industry is great.
Yeah.
I know, a lot of times investors are kind of interested in looking at a quick SWOT analysis. And if you have something, if you have to do one yourself, sometimes it can be a daunting task. But if you're able to not only pull one up, but be able to say, this is where I got this information from. Because, we do this in academia all the time, is we want you to cite your sources, because we don't just want to hear a figure. We want to be able to go, all right, where did you get that figure? Is that a reliable source? Can we go and verify it ourselves? And so I think anytime you're doing a pitch, even though you don't have to sit there in the pitch and every time go, this is where this number's coming from. But if you're asked about it, to have that information ready and go, yeah, this is where we got it. This is who did the analysis. This is where these numbers come from. It just adds that much more credibility to you, shows that you're prepared, shows that you've done your homework and really know what you're talking about. And so another one I want to show you is, where we got here, is Mintel. So Mintel is kind of a marketing tool in a sense. This has a lot of what I would describe as industry reports, but I've got to say I'm not using this for business. Let's see, there we go.
While that's posting, Peter added that Data Axle offers information on the number of employees and the management team in many of its listings, which is great. I think that's
great.
only when it's publicly traded, though. Is that right? I don't know, Peter, if that is true for both public and private companies.
It depends on where Data Axle is getting their information. I would say it's inconsistent. There are some private companies where they do list the owners, the CEOs, the officers. Data Axle actually contacts all of the companies in its database on a regular basis. So if they've been asked the question and they answer it, then they should have that up-to-date information.
Right.
Some of the entries they list nobody. Some of the entries they will list a half a dozen people.
Yeah, and there's such an attrition anymore that I don't know how much they could keep up on that to keep it current, which is probably why LinkedIn will always be the number one source for figuring out who has the role and who we can connect with. But it's good to know. Thank you. Back to you, Eric.
Right on. And so Mintel, this tends to do more of kind of market analysis in the sense of looking at it from a marketing standpoint, looking at, hey, what are our projections in the future? Where's this industry at? So let's say if we were doing, I don't know, beauty products. And so essentially what Mintel gives us is a number of reports that that they have produced in various sectors, and in many times in companies encompassing specific time periods. And sometimes these can get as granular as, hey, what happened in the third quarter? Hey, what happened in August? Depending on the industry. And so, I just did a search on beauty products, and you notice obviously it's going to sort by relevance. But as we kind of scroll down, we're going to see some more, different reports, things like that. A report from 2021 on, say, beauty retailing. And it might get as, let's say, detailed as we're looking at hair removal products. And so if I pop into this report, it tells us, you know, who the analyst is. And then, you know, we're going to get our things. We can have the full report, which is going to be a big old PDF. But one of the neat things too is it gives us overviews, right? So for those of us who are, you know, a little more, let's say, visual. Let's see, why did it give me a PDF? Oh, screen version should have popped up on my screen, but did that go to the PDF? I think it probably did on the screen there. But yeah, it gives you kind of, you know, things that you can use as graphics, say, in a presentation if you're going to talk about a specific industry. And so, you know, just looking at this, hey, here's what's going on now. Here's what's expected to happen in the near future and the longer term. And one of the neat things I think about Mintel is it puts a lot of this kind of in a nice way to visualize data, right? Just not your standard bar chart. But you know, they put a lot of effort into it, and you know, hey, we've got a razor chart as opposed to a bar chart, and things like that. And then you can, you know, grab these pages as you need, turn them into slides, and you know, incorporate them into your pitch. They're just kind of fun to use. Other things that are in there is, you know, you can go to the data book. And then this thing, basically, I haven't delved into this a lot personally. I kind of have I'd say a shallow knowledge of it. But when you get into it, it allows you to, I don't need to do the tour right now. But essentially it allows you to get in there and look at surveys about how people are using things, what they're using, what they prefer to use. And so like here, you know, here are people who've used, you know, who's used this in the last 12 months at home, right? And so, yeah, 92% of adults, right, have used a razor in the last month. And then as we get down there, it's like, well, you know, at-home waxes 11%, right? And you can find this information. And, you know, these are things that if you're doing a pitch, you're talking to, you know, investors are trying to evaluate a market. Hey, what are people using? What are people not using? Where might there be, you know, areas ripe for, say, exploitation if you can, you know, build the better mousetrap or, you know, build the better razor, things like that. And so there's all types of data that are in these data books. You can, you know, view it as a table as opposed to a graph, and, you know, you can find different ways to essentially express the data. This is as percentages. If it's a larger survey, sometimes you just want to have the numbers there. You can include on percentages your margin of error. So that, you know, you can take a look at, all right, well, we know 90, you know, if we went back to our razor, you know, 92% plus or minus 1, we had a pretty good sample there. Other things, a little larger because probably not as well answered. So yeah, having this interactive data book is a nice part, nice feature in the Mintel database. You can get full reports on the industry. You can even get a little brochure if you wanted to hand something out. So the nice thing about Mintel is it has all of these little pre-packaged things that are nice for incorporating into presentations or using as graphics in a written presentation or written.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. And just from my experience, you know, if you try and do a Google search, we were doing a search for one of my friends. She's got an invention for food chub rolls. You know, that's the ground meat that they put with the foil or whatever, and they just close it. So it's not typical packaging. Well, chub rolls are growing, but every single report that we, especially in other parts of the world, but every single report that we found only gave you a little snippet of it and wanted you to pay to unlock the whole thing. And they started at $2,500. So the value of what you're sharing with us right now is insane, folks. I hope you understand that just knowing that that's there. Oh my God, it's incredible.
Yeah, and you know, one of the services that libraries provide is something called interlibrary loan, which means if we don't have something in our collection, we can actually go out there and you know, essentially ask another library to supply it to us so that we can supply it to our patrons. And one of the things we do get asked for a lot are those type of marketing reports that are out there for, as Lisa said, for $2,500. Sometimes they're more, sometimes
More, I
they're
was going to say,
5,000,
they
sometimes
start
they're
there.
2,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
It depends on the scope. But yeah, libraries typically don't get those. Those are even things we can't get through interlibrary loan because either the library hasn't paid for it, because we simply can't pay $2,500 to get a resource that one person has requested.
Right.
We just don't obviously have the budget for that. But other libraries, if they do get them for whatever reason, they're typically prohibited in the licensing agreement to actually lend those out to other libraries. And so it's one of those things where, when we get asked we get asked a lot by students, because we have students on entrepreneurial teams who find marketing reports. They're like, "Oh, can I use this?" Yeah, you can use it, but we can't buy it for you. We just can't do that. But then we basically take them to other places such as, Mintel or IBIS World. And we try to find other information in there that they can use. It's not always exactly the same, but it's pretty good. And it's usually basically what students need to do student projects. Those $2,500 reports you're seeing are really geared towards, businesses more than academia.
Well, and that's the thing. She just wanted the answer to one question about how many are sold in the US, and she couldn't get that one answer without getting the whole report. So,
Right.
And I see it a lot. And I'm so glad. I know it's there, and yet I forget about it. And I'm an academic advisor at ASU for the Venture Devil program. And I'm going to start reminding them also to go back and start using these resources to make their business case and for their pitch decks, when they're doing the funding.
Yeah, and I do talk to some of the entrepreneurship classes that are held, and it's great because it's one of the interesting things that happened when I was hired by ASU, because ASU is only one of 3 libraries in North America that have combined engineering and entrepreneurship together in the library.
Yeah.
Typically, entrepreneurship librarians live in the business school, or with business librarians. And when I came to ASU, it has been far more difficult for me as a librarian to kind of crack into engineering courses. And part of that is because, engineers don't use the library a lot for engineering courses, right? Their answers deal in numbers necessarily, not in words. But who has always used me a lot is the entrepreneurship side of engineering. And I think that kind of speaks to entrepreneurs, right? Because entrepreneurs are looking for ways to leverage resources. And that resource can be a person, that resource can be, capital, that resource can be money, and that resource, really a lot of times, that resource is information. And so every time I've actually gone in and met with entrepreneurship students, they've used me, and it's been fantastic. They use this a lot. And so, yeah, I love talking to the students. I love helping them find the information, and not just finding the information for them, but teaching them how to find that information themselves, so that they can go out and not have to wait for me or make an appointment, and can go, "Hey, I remember this database I saw."
Right on. Awesome.
Yeah, and so let
There's
me
a couple
pop back
comments,
here.
but not really questions. Sorry. I was going to say, I thought there might be questions, but they're not. They're comments. So please continue. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, let me pop back to sharing here again. I was getting some things ready while we were talking. So another two databases I'm going to show you, actually 3 more very quickly. 2 more through the library. One is called Orbis, Orbis. And this is really kind of information that's out there. A lot of this is publicly available, but the Orbis database kind of puts it into one location. This is a database, honestly, I don't necessarily use as much as, say, IBIS World and Mintel for taking a look at information. and it's being slow. It happens. We'll give it a minute.
Fred, I see your comment about just talking with the company executives. Yeah, I mean, the first step I've always taken is just to call the company and ask who the head of marketing or who the head of brand development, depending on the size of the company, or who it is that handles licensing. So I'll just ask them. But a lot of the times companies, especially the larger companies, they don't know. They don't know who to put you through to. So I find that going to LinkedIn, going to their company profile page, and then just starting to connect with people with the right titles, and then asking them who to speak with has been a process that's consistently worked for me.
Awesome. So let's take a look at another company. I don't know. How about something not the size of Apple? What would be it?
Do you want to go for specifically a company?
Yeah. What do you got in mind?
All right, let's look at Libman, Libman Mops.
Libman Mops.
Mm-hmm.
Hope I spelled that correctly. Okay, they're not in here.
Big
Do they
words.
have a? Are they subsidiary of somebody larger?
No.
Okay.
And I think that's part of the challenge with these databases is if they're just pulling from public information,
Yeah.
then a lot of the times they're not going to be the right list for us as inventors who want to license. It's powerful information for making a business case and validating your ideas, but creating a list or finding out who to license to is probably not going to come from these resources.
Okay. Because a lot of times what you're doing is you're looking at kind of smaller firms, things like that, who aren't necessarily associated.
Mid-size.
with
I don't like small and I don't like large. I like mid-size companies. That's the sweet spot where they tend to be the most aggressive and therefore the most
Yeah.
least risk averse. Large companies are all about maintaining their brands and maybe incremental growth because they're wanting to preserve their position as the leader in the market, right? And having a leading share. And smaller companies are not going to be making that's them.
Yeah. And so let's see their family companies there.
Which is like one, that's a really good example of the type of mop company that
Okay. And so they've got all these various things. Okay. Well, let's.
I have a mop that I pitched to them and that I may bring back to them. I don't know if I'm going to go back to them or not. That's one example. I don't know how.
It's not even.
No idea how
Actually, you
good
know
they
what? Let me search up here. I bet you I just used the wrong search bar, maybe. Ah, there we go.
Yay!
See, I was using
first one.
This how bad.
That's
bad
okay. That's
design.
how we
I
learn.
was in the wrong search bar. Here we go.
So note to
Yay.
self: it doesn't work the first time. Keep trying until you figure it out, folks.
Hey, like I said, this is one I don't use a lot, so I'm just.
That's all right. This is
There
great.
we go. So here we go. Here's Libman for you.
Okay.
Yeah, because when you said mid-size, I'm like, oh, it's got to be out there somewhere.
Yeah, they're 179 million.
Yeah. So one thing, let's see what we've got in here, right? It talks about there's your number of employees again. No known directors or managers. That's interesting. Let's see if there's anything in here that has contacts.
And as I recall, they're a family-owned company.
Yeah, that's their general information there. Oh, directors, managers, advisors. Yeah, so they don't have that information out there, it looks like. And if they're family, so they're, because there you go, private company right there.
The revenue is really helpful and getting a kind of a bird's eye view of a snapshot of the company is really helpful because when you Google it, you might get close, but it's also still a crapshoot of whether the numbers are right.
And so Orbis does have patent portfolios.
Oh, that's cool.
So there you go. So you can see, what's pending, what's been granted. And there are ways to search this also through the patent office to see, who's got the patents. But yeah, so that's kind of nice to have that in there. I'm glad you got me to go I'm glad I went into Orbis today. But yeah, as you can see with all these databases, there's so much information. It's like, oh, look what I'm learning today. So that's something that's kind of cool for you.
Can you go down to underneath patent portfolio? It says royalties agreements.
Yeah, I clicked on that. There was nothing there.
Oh, okay, I missed
That
it.
would have been cool too. I thought. I'm like, oh, for a
That was-
private company, I'd explain. They probably don't put that out there, right? I'm not sure I'd want to put my royalty information out there if I was a public company. That might be a
Yeah.
little, something I want to protect. But yeah, and if you notice, I just noticed too that it not only has US patents, but in this case, an Australian patent, Canadian.
Does the link take you to the patent office or Google? I'm curious.
Let's take a look.
It's not moving.
Oh, I don't have access to their intellectual property module.
Oh,
So I can't go directly in there, but I've got the patent number. I could go elsewhere to find it, right?
yeah. Very cool. Thanks.
Yeah. One other database. This is what librarians look like all the time. We have multiple tabs open just for one thing. I don't know how useful this would be for you, but it's kind of an interesting one. It's called Panjiva. And this essentially looks at kind of import-export things. Is global trade information something that would really be useful at this level?
You never know. Could be. Might as well go quickly.
So hell, let's try Libman again. Well, I don't know if they've got I spell that right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at that. And so essentially, this is basically giving us trade information about Libman in terms of, hey, where are they getting shipments from? Where are they shipping things to? Not just, we can see what ports they're using, who's going, where they're going to, things like that. What countries are involved in the trade a lot. I will say one thing, a warning about this database is that the data on China is old. China within the last 2 years has essentially depublicized their specific trade information in terms of what's going in and out of their ports. However, because most of the places that China is shipping to still has public information that says, where did this ship come from? It can be basically, back calculated what was coming from China in that time frame.
Drew, I'm sorry. Hang on a second. Drew, did you want us to look up U-Haul on this one or the one before this?
It was just before.
Oh,
Okay.
on Orbis? Yeah, we could look up U-Haul. Absolutely.
I apologize.
I bet you want the big U-Haul.
Yeah.
There we go. And if you notice, it asked me if I wanted to add it to my current search. So I think Orbis allows you kind of compare companies to each other. So here's U-Haul. What can I show you on U-Haul? Or are you just interested to see if they
Well,
had it?
I know they were a private company for quite some time. And,
Yeah, it still shows them as private.
Yeah. I just knew we were kind of thinking about looking up a private one, and I thought.
Yeah, although this is incorporated in Rhode Island, which makes me suspect.
Yeah, it's only 11 million, so I don't think it's the right
Yeah, I
one.
don't think that's the national. That's probably a local U-Haul subsidiary that just deals with U-Haul there, based on how they're organized. What we can do is, because there are multiple U-Hauls that are listed in there.
Yeah, and as we move forward on this other one, it's very useful for negotiating a license because you now know what their markets are and where they're at.
Exactly. Yeah. Interesting.
And Eric, just to reiterate, to have access to this, we can't do, well, I can because I'm on staff at ASU,
Right.
but like generally someone can't do this online. They have to go into one of the 2 main locations if they want access to this, correct?
Yeah, you can go to any of our 4 locations. I just recommended those 2 because of the free parking.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay.
Yeah. And I haven't forgotten. I'll get a map. I will get a map before we end. And so, yeah, so I think, yeah, these are things that I'm showing you that you kind of have to be in person for. But again, if, as Lisa mentioned on some of these marketing reports, $2,500 might be worth the trip. Yeah. And then the last one I wanted to show you, it isn't through the library. It's actually a subscription paid for by, of all things, ASU's University Technology Office. And it's called, it's from Gartner. And this is another thing that's kind of a 30,000 foot view of industries. And let's say I did autonomous vehicle, autonomous trucking. Let's do that. Essentially what Gartner does is it does, again, kind of like IBIS World did or Mintel did, is it looks at industries to see what's going on. And Gartner has this kind of specific little thing that they call the hype cycle. And if you're familiar with the kind of theory on the diffusion of innovation, right? How you have your 2% who are the innovators, and then you have the the early adopters, things like that whole curve. This is based in a sense on that, but they have a model of how the public responds to inventions or innovations, where everybody at the beginning gets really excited about it. They see all the potential. And then eventually that kind of early period, like you're falling in love with somebody, you get to this top here, and then, well, what we expected to happen quickly didn't happen as fast as we wanted, right? It took more work. And then the public starts to be a little bit disillusioned with it and gets, we get down here to this point, but then all the hard work that everybody's been doing kind of gets us up to an area here eventually where we are productive with whatever the innovation is. And so what Gartner does is they do this analysis and they kind of try to find out where various things are on this hype cycle and make predictions about how soon is it going to take to get from where they're at here over to this area where it's mainstream and public and accepted. And so if we were looking at, autonomous trucking, Gartner's saying right now, we're kind of at the point where there's work going on, but there's not a lot of excitement about it, right? But we're 2 to 5 years away from going from here to here. And so Gartner has this kind of information, and this is another one of those kind of neat graphics you can throw into a pitch deck if you want. We're talking to somebody about where do you see this industry being in 2 years or 5 years, things like that. If this information is valuable for you or helps you make your case, it's one of those fun things to throw in. But again, this is something, again, you have to be sitting on ASU's campus for, unfortunately.
And is this is just basically the life cycle of like an industry, a category?
Multiple. It's more a life cycle of what I would say innovation in the industry, right? So what we're looking at here is this is kind of what's going on with robotics and drones, potentially ones that are autonomous, right? So when we see mobile transport, we're talking about vehicles and trucks, but other things, right? So computer vision, is almost to the point where, hey, this is a very mature innovation. It's about to be mainstream to the point where we're not even going to call it an innovation anymore. Once we get over here, it's not innovative, it's mainstream. But then we have other things going on over here. They actually called out autonomous trucks on their own. But we have, robots working in warehouses. So
I bet
an Amazon, warehouse and going and grabbing things instead of people, things like that. So that's what this is doing. It's looking at an industry, but it's looking at innovation in the industry and saying, when is it going to stop being what we call innovative, right? And being in development, technology and development, and get over here to the right side where it's basically mainstream.
I would think this could also help you see where an industry might be ripe for disruption.
Yeah.
Right? Going the other direction with it, with the
Yeah,
data.
and they do actually have this also thing called the priority matrix. And so when we're talking about disruption or a transformational benefit, as they call it, these are the sorts of things that, when finally developed, are going to have that disruptive effect on industry, and not just the industry that they're talking about, but broader industries as well, because we can imagine what autonomous trucking would do, not just to say the robot industry, but really autonomous trucking is going to revolutionize logistics and shipping. It's going to revolutionize, it's really going to disrupt what's going to happen on our interstates as well, because conceivably you could have these trucks rolling out there at 2 or 3 in the morning, when it'd be horrible for a person to be driving because our bodies are just not necessarily attuned to that. But they could get out there when there's no traffic and just deliver goods like there's no tomorrow. So yeah, it's the priority matrix and this hype cycle are kind of two interesting things that Gartner has available. And again, this is one of those things that if you were not at ASU or an academic institution that has this available, you're paying thousands of dollars for this information.
Yep. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes until we were scheduled to be done. I'm happy.
Well, I'm done. That we got to my point. Oh no, I need the map. So let's
While
talk.
you're getting-
I'll find the map of
the map.
ASU's campuses.
Yeah, while you're getting that, I'm taking a look to see here if we have any last questions. Couple little things I'll bring up. I'm happy to stick around longer too, if we need to. Can we look at LEDs with a question from Drew? And look up the future of hydrogen fluid cars and trucks versus EV or electric battery power cars. I'd be curious to know if that is something that you can look up.
Yeah, we can absolutely try to do that. Let me see if I can get I'm still doing the map thing here. I found a map, but it's not going to be good for a screenshot.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. I'm just going to invite you, if you have a question, go ahead and unmute yourself so you can come up on stage with me and I can see that you have a question. And of course we can.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drop a link to our locations in the chat and you can grab the link. How does that sound?
Thank you very much. That's perfect.
Yeah.
It solves it for everybody.
All right. So we want hydrogen versus EV, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so let's say, well, what can we look at that? Let me do a little poking here.
So I noticed that when I'm putting my pitch together, I used a pitch deck for my mom, but generally I use Excel sheets. So it's just a standard single sheet. And on the pitch deck, the reason I did that was because I wasn't just pitching mop companies who already knew their business. I was pitching direct response companies who don't know. They certainly know that mops do well in that category, but they don't know the breakdown of sales and why rag mops, for example, still do better than any other mop or that sort of. So that's where that data would have really helped me effectively communicate the value proposition of my mop, because it would have the data to support why I made it the way that I did. That was super cool stuff. Yeah, so Fred was asking if you could do it on Gartner.
Yeah, so let me share my screen here. So I did, and there we go.
And Joe, Eric,
Yeah, so
the link.
I found it under the hype cycle for sustainability. And it's got hydrogen vehicles right over here, saying they're estimating 5 to 10 years off. And you can see EV when they did this report, it's basically almost there, right? Which jives kind of with, I think, what we all are seeing now in terms of how many people are starting to get EVs. But the vehicles are here. The charging infrastructure is a little bit behind it. I think it would seem to me you would want the charging infrastructure about the same place as the EVs. But yeah, so this has some of the information in there about sustainable ways, and if we one of the things you can do is when you click on these, it'll talk about over here where it's going, right? And give kind of a snapshot of what's going on, what's the business impact, things like that, some news in it. We can do the same thing for, say, electric vehicles. And then over here, right, it's early mainstream right now. It's showing the market penetration about 5 to 20%. I think the last time I saw specific numbers on EVs, it was about 8 to 10, fairly specifically. So in addition to having this nice little graph, you can click on the information here and, get actual words that talk about it. And I know you like to know groups who are out there, so it gives you sample vendors of who's in there. I mean, of course, we know who's in there in the electric vehicle space, but if we're looking at, say, hydrogen vehicles, I don't even know who's working on it. Oh, of course, GM. Makes sense. The big guys. I don't know who Ballard is, though. That would be a place to investigate.
That was amazing. That was absolutely incredible. Joe, the answer to your question about the locations is in the link above.
I think he wants to do a screen capture. I'm going to try to. Oh, I think I know how to do this. I have an interactive map that I can scale, I bet.
That's okay. The link is good. We can all use the link. That's helpful.
Okay.
Everybody's just saying great stuff. All right, awesome. Eric, thank you. This was incredible. I wish I lived in Phoenix still so I could take advantage and just spend hours and hours there. I'm sure I would never run out of questions to ask. Are there any last questions for anybody else?
Joe had a question about the link. So at that link, when you go to the one that I gave you on our locations, that will give you the address of the ASU locations. And then when you can obviously just pop that into your map app or navigation app, and it'll show you where it's at. And then when you're there, you'll just want to go to one of the libraries, which you can also search for on, say, Google Maps or something. But you don't actually have to physically be in one of our libraries to be able to access this. If you just get there, if you're on your laptop and you sign into the ASU guest Wi-Fi, you don't need a password for that. Just being on that Wi-Fi network is enough for it to IP authenticate you to get into the information.
Okay, so just go to the library, basically.
Exactly, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks much.
Peter, is there anything that you want to add about non-ASU libraries, public libraries?
Not really. I think Eric has done a great job demonstrating the power of library resources. Just like when it comes to the various bits of information that you might find in one database over another, some of these databases are available at the local public library. Some are not. Lisa, you mentioned that you're in Tucson. University of Arizona probably offers many of them as well down there. So just like any other search for information, you're going to have to put the pieces together a little bit, but you will definitely find that easier through the public library than you will on the internet on your own at home, especially if you ask for help.
From a pro. Awesome. Any last thoughts or comments? This was amazing. Thank you so much, Eric.
Thanks so much for having me. I really had a great time.
I hope you'll come back and do this again with us in a year.
Yeah, let me know. I'd be happy to.
Talk about.
And I'll be on time this time.
I'll get it right on the calendar.
We'll figure it out.
I appreciate you all being here this evening. Our next closed door meeting is in 2 weeks. Sorry, we're not having our next closed door. It's December. We are not having our closed door meeting. We'll pick things back up in January with our open meeting and go right back to our regular schedule then. As an announcement, I am looking for someone to help me in Phoenix with meeting in person. Somebody. I can't do it. I'm not there. So when I was younger, I used to drive up and back twice a month to do the meetings. I'm too old for that shit now. So I need someone to help me with it out. So if you're interested at all, I will do what I can to mentor you and give you whatever I have to help you be successful with your business in exchange for you helping us run those meetings. Other than that, that's my only announcement. I wish you all well. Have a wonderful holiday season, and I'll see you next year. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Bye, everyone.